It's March 14th, 2026, getting started on the wings. I'll show you what I've been doing. I've got the left spar here sitting on the workbench clamped in. There's all these holes for these nut plates that are gonna go in, and so I need to countersink that. Got to first drill these holes to number 40 and then countersink them for the rivets. And then this is also gonna need to be countersunk for a number 8 screw. Kind of embarrassing to say, but took me a lot of practice. I got it set finally, and I was just crazy nervous. So I got 6 countersinks done. They fit perfectly. So those are done. That's all the time I've got for today, and I don't want to rush myself to try to get more done. So I'm just going to be back in the morning to try to finish up the countersinking on hopefully the top, the bottom, do the other spar, and then I'm going to start working on figuring out the screw hole countersinks. But it's April 3rd, 2026, back in the shop. Last day I've got to work on this thing for about a week, so I'm going to try to get some done. I got an hour and a half only, unfortunately. Left off yesterday with finishing up these countersinks, and I realized I didn't really give you much story on what this is for. This is the left main spar. As you can see, the top is this way, bottom that way, and forward would be that way. The fuel tank will attach on these holes right here. So what's going to happen is there's going to be nut plates riveted in there, which look like this. And so these will be riveted with the holes that I'm countersinking right now, just like that. And then a screw will go through the skin, through that hole, and hold the fuel tank on. So that's what most of these are. On the bottom, there's a few odd ones like here and here. You can see these are just rivet holes on the top. On the bottom, there's actually, on the far flange, the aft flange, places for nut plates. Those are for access panels, so you have access underneath the wing. So that's where we're at. Alrighty, I've made some progress here. The top of the left spar, countersinking for the plate nut holes, is pretty much done. I'm going to flip this over and do the bottom, and then we'll be riveting the plate nuts in. And once we rivet them in, we can work on countersinking the hole for the number 8 screw. We got the right spar and the left spar, all the countersinks for at least the nut plates on both of them are done. That's all the time I got for today. That was about 2 hours of work, getting all those countersinks on both sides of each spar. And now I've got to go to work for a week, and then when I get back, I've got to figure out the number 8 screws aren't fitting through these holes, so they must need to be drilled out. So I got to figure that out. I've got to prime with the Q-tip the holes that I've already countersunk, and then each hole is gonna have another countersink where the screw's gonna go. The other part that I gotta keep an eye out for is, this is the bottom side of the left spar. On the bottom where there's these extra nut plates, there's 3 groups of 4 for access plates under the wing. That's a number 6 screw, whereas those are number 8. I don't have the right bit for a number 6 screw. That'll be a number 28, but I have a number 19 for these number 8s, so I'm gonna drill all the number 19 for the number 8 screws here, and both sides, both spars. That'll be it for today. It's kind of late in the evening, and I'm at a standstill until I get those other ones in, but get that done. Then tomorrow I'll be able to go and get the right size drill bit to finish the other side up. All right, I've got all the holes on both spars drilled to number 8. First thing to do tomorrow will be drill those holes to number 6 and then get these nut plates on so we can countersink for the screws. And there's some measurements that go along with that I'm gonna reference Van's Air Force and that sort of thing for that. So that's what we'll do tomorrow. All right, back in the hangar. It is May 28th and got a number 19 drill bit. Also got a shorter number 28 because that one yesterday was a little long, but all the number 6 screw holes. Sorry, I got a number 28. That's the one we were missing. Also got a shorter 19, but all the number 6, which were the number 19, are done. So the 28 is what I got to do. Like I said, those are for the access panels underneath the wings. So I'm going to drill those. Then we'll be on to riveting some nut plates in. Okay, I've got all the nut plates for the fuel tank attached to each spar. The other one's sitting over there. This is the right spar. So we're looking at the bottom here. What I got to do now is attach the nut plates for the inspection panels. Okay, the access plate plate nuts are installed for the right wing. All right, the access plate nuts are installed for the left spar and the right spar. So we're on to countersinking. I looked online, 2 different options for measurements. This guy's basically build page. Countersinks with numbered screws. He's building a RV7. And I guess this wasn't 2010, so he's probably done. But the size of this countersink has to be measured with calipers. The number 6 is going to be 0.3125. Number 8, 0.365 to 0.375. So, like I said, these ones are going to be the number 6s. And these ones will be number 8s for the fuel tank. This is going to take some time, and I'm super nervous not to go too deep, but that's what it's supposed to look like as you get going. And then I'll have to prime those, but that's where we're at. All right, so I did a little test run here. This is, as far as I could tell, as close to the main spar thickness as possible. I got the calipers set up to 0.312, and it is just about there. Maybe even a little shallow yet, but I don't want to set that too much deeper before I dig it into the spar and see how it acts. So I read up online, make sure I was doing this right, because this is really deep. Here's what it looks like with a number 6 screw in it. And I'm doing the access plates first, because they're not a structural component, so if I screw something up, it's not going to be terrible. But yeah, with the number 6 screw, you can see it sits flatter because they want that piece of aluminum, that sheet metal, the access plate or the fuel tank, depending on which one, to sit inside of it once the screw goes through without kind of bulging out. we are exactly where we want to be. All right, all the countersinks for the access plates on the spars are done. All right, well, good news is all the countersinks are done. Bad news is it's just on the bottom of the right spar, so I got a lot more work to do. I'm out of time for today. Maybe I'll come back tonight or it'll be tomorrow. Finish the other side of this one, both sides on the left spar, and then all these will have to be primed before we move on to the next step. All right, it's May 29th. I'm back in the hangar. Got a few hours here. I'm just going to continue countersinking the fuel tank attach points where I left off yesterday. All right, the countersinking on both spars is all done. So now I've got some primer here, and I'm going to go through with a Q-tip and prime all the holes. All right, according to the plans, the next step is to dimple these access plates. There's 6 of them, 3 for each wing, and that'll allow access underneath the wing for inspections and whatnot. So we've got to dimple all the holes for that number 6 screw that we just put these nut plates in the spar for. So that's what we're doing. All right, it is June 6th. And I'm out at the hangar, got about 3 hours to work on the plane here. I didn't really get anywhere with these access plates, but taking the blue, protective stuff off of them. I did just notice, so these are number 6 screws that go into the spar. The other ones are on this access plate are gonna be number 8 screws. So you can see AN507 6R6 screw, and then AN509 8R8. So I was gonna go through and dimple all these to number 6, but it sounds like these ones are going to be dimpled to number 8. So I'm just going to do these ones for now. All the ones that'll be going into the spar, dimple them for number 6 screw, and then I'm going to wait to see if they want these to number 8. All right, I've got all the holes that go into the spar dimpled and drilled for number 6 screws. I was gonna wait on doing the number 8s, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do them. So I got a number 19 drill bit in here. I'm gonna drill those all and then grab a number 8 dimple die set and get those dimpled. These holes right here are for center section attachments. So I need a countersink for these K1000-4 nut plates, and they'll basically sit underneath like that. So like this, but on the underside there. And that'll allow bolts to go through to attach the center section. And this is what that looks like in the plans. Here's a rear view of the spar. We're looking at those 2 nut plates right there. This is the spar. So the nut plates will be right there, and bolts will go through the center section into those. All right, the first step for the tie down assembly is making these spacers here. So this is the detailed view. I basically just need to measure out these dimensions. There will be, I think it's an inch hole in the center of it, but I'm not gonna drill that yet. I don't have the right tool for it, but I'm gonna go ahead and measure out these dimensions and cut 2 of those. All right, the only thing I had time to do here was mark out what kind of cuts we need to make. So this is for the spacers. We're gonna need to get 4 of them out of this. They're 2 inches long. Here's where they have 1-inch holes in them. So I marched the first 2, and when I get back to the hangar, whenever I'm here next, I'll cut those and then mark the next 2. And then the tie downs themselves, this basically gets riveted to the spar, and we gotta tap a 3/8 thread into that for eyelets, but they have to be shortened by like literally a 32nd of an inch. So the plans show that spec. So I've got those all measured out. That's it for today. Next time I'm here, I'll make those cuts and kind of see what's next. All right, it's June 24th, 2026. I've got an hour or 2 to work on the plane. I'm starting with the spacers for the tie down. So I've got to cut there. I've got to figure out how to drill out that inch hole. I'm gonna ask a friend about that, but for now I'm gonna get those cut. And there's 2 of those spacers for each spar where the tie downs are gonna be. All right, I've got the spacers all cut to size with the hole marked. Reading online, these are just holes to lighten the material of the spacer, basically just reduce weight. And so I think that's a little stupid. I mean, this thing's not that heavy. I'm gonna do some more reading on Van's Air Force and see if I should just skip drilling the center hole to lighten it up and keep them as one solid piece. I'm not sure yet, but for now, these things are cut to size, 7 and 15 32nd. They're actually just a touch shorter because I kind of maybe grinded a little too much, but I think it'll be just fine. I took it up to the spar and measured it. Basically, you start by drilling this hole at the top of it for the tie down, and then you'll bolt it onto the spar and drill the other corner holes. And then once the spacers are in place, you can get these holes drilled through. Decided to go against getting a $30 tool to drill these 1-inch holes just for weight reduction. I'm gonna do 3/4 inch just with a step bit. That's what some people on Van's Air Force did, so. I've got the 3/4 inch holes drilled in all the spacers, and the next step, I believe, is gonna be grabbing the spar, mounting all this together and getting the rest of the holes drilled for the tie downs. Then I'll need to tap these to, I think it's 3/8, so I'll look at the plans for that. All right, I finished up the spacers. Basically got all the holes drilled for the right spar. I'm gonna do the same thing now on the left, and I won't record it since I got a time lapse of me doing that one. Both of the tie downs and the spacers are drilled, and I've got them marked up for orientation. The next step is I've got this clamped together with the 2 bolts in it. We have to go and install these nut plates. So I'm basically using the nut plate as a drill guide. I've got it threaded in just by hand, and I'll hold the nut plate still, drill through there so that those can be riveted on. All right, I've got all the holes drilled for the plate nuts in each of these through both the tie down and the spacers. And so that's the left side, that's done. I'm gonna go ahead and do the right side now. I won't record that. All right, that's it for today. Gotta head to work for a week now, but got all these drilled. So basically the next steps are to countersink this side of the rivets for the nut plates so it can sit flush against the spar. Then this stuff has gotta be primed and we can rivet it to the spar. All right, I'm back in the hangar. It's July 7th, 2026. Gonna go ahead and countersink the holes for all the nut plates so we can get the nut plates riveted on. I've got all the holes where the rivets are gonna go through, countersunk on both tie down spacers. And so now I'm gonna go ahead and rivet the nut plate. All right, those are all done. So essentially how this will work is this is the right spar, this is the tie down. 4 bolts will go through there, and then 4 will go through this backside into there, which goes through the spacers. All right, before we're all done with these, we actually do have to drill out the hole for the actual tie down eyelet. So we're gonna drill it to a 5/16 and then tap it with a 3/8 by 16 coarse thread tap. I'm getting near the end of the, just reading through kind of ahead on preparing the main spar, if we were finished or not. And we are. I've got these tapped, both of them to 3/8 for the tie downs. So those need to be primed, then we can install them. There is one other thing, and it's to drill this left spar for basically a hole for the stall warning system wire. And they refer to Op 4602, which is this stall warning system installation. And this is where that hole needs to be. The problem is I'm not exactly sure where this is, so I'm gonna wait to do this and drill that hole to number 30 or 3/8. And I'll do that later on, kind of once I get some ribs on the spar and I have a better idea of where that is and where this access hatch is for the stall warning system. All right, it's July 8th, 2026. I just finished organizing a whole ton of nuts and washers and stuff, bought another drawer. Now I'm finishing up the main spar in the next hour here. So the bolts that go into the plate nuts will attach these bell cranks for the aileron. So we're gonna install those. All right, I've got the first one done. The aileron bell crank brackets are installed, and that's basically how it looks. I got them torqued down, 25 inch-pounds. That's the tie-down bracket. So that's done for the left spar. Now I just got to do the right. All right, I finished installing the tie-down on the right spar, and so that completes the first episode of the wing, building the main spars. They're all done for now, and now we're moving on to the rear spar.